Welcome to Chik Chat, the podcast where the girl with many titles talks about life, the good and the bad, and everything around it. We're going to sit, chat, share life stories and experiences, from business to relationship. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Chik Chat Podcast. So for those of you that are new here, welcome. For the older listeners, welcome back. I'm going to try and do something a little bit different today. I have loved making the podcast for the last 6 months, but I feel like I need to kind of push myself a little bit more and talk about some of the things that I know maybe resonate. Like, especially on TikTok, I feel like I'm a lot more open than the other platforms because it's less daunting. But I feel like there are things that I sometimes go through in life and things that I am going through that would resonate with other people that are on the same kind of journey. And the main one for me this week is talking about healing whilst you're in a relationship. And this came about because, so I was talking to G. Every once in a while, me and G will sit and talk about just where we are in the relationship, the things that we want to plan, the things that we want to do, and what our goals are, and so on. And I asked for some I asked for something in particular. And as we started talking about it, and I'm really lucky enough to be with someone that, one, is self-aware, 2, has been to therapy, and 3, understands maybe not just me as a person, but just understands the complexities of life and how to communicate that. And when I communicated one of my current needs, so this came about in terms of, how can I phrase this? Let's say we're talking about love languages. So we're talking about love languages, and I have started to figure out that whilst me and G building what we are building, my love languages aren't actually what I thought they were. So I've always been an acts of service kind of person, and I love spending time with people as well. But I've actually started to realise that some of, like, I want words of affirmation. I like getting gifts and whatever else. So there'll be loads of things that G does as a whole that just made me realise that actually there are some other things that I want maybe more of, or in a slightly different way. And as we started talking about where that was coming from and what that could look like and what that could potentially mean, when I talked about it from the point of view of where exes in the past have said something similar or done things in the past, he highlighted that was coming from an unhealthy place. And if someone is securing themselves as a person, if they are securing themselves in the relationship, then ultimately it's not something that would even be an issue, which made me realise, and honestly it threw me for 6 because I don't know if that's a saying. Also, G's made me realise that I say a lot of things that are slightly off, but so ignore it if I do. But yeah, it really messed with my head because it made me feel like I have had years of dealing with trauma since I was a kid, and that trauma has specifically been with men and around men. And as I've grown up, other things have happened, things that might have been out of their control. Just life happens, and I still sometimes react to life now from that place, and I don't realise it. And even saying it is making me emotional because, so the thing that's been bothering me the most at the moment is the fact that throughout this whole healing journey, I always feel like I get to a point where I'm like, yes, like I'm doing so well, I've done the work, I can see the positive effects it's having, and then something happens that feels like it sets me back, and it feels frustrating. I can't lie, it feels frustrating, and it feels just really annoying because it's like, okay, when am I just going to be okay? But ultimately, we're never just okay because we're constantly evolving as people, we're constantly growing as people. But it reminded me that actually in our relationships, we grow, we carry on growing, and it's okay to grow in a relationship. So before me and G met, for those of you that do know me, like you'll know my history. For those of you that don't, to be fair, a lot of stuff, like if you scroll through my social media and even look on my blog, I talked a lot about being in a relationship with the people I've been in relationships with. I have talked openly about some of the challenges that I've faced over the last few years. Some bits I've not talked about, and I think doing this podcast made me nervous because it's a very vulnerable thing, and ultimately I didn't know how to, not even that I didn't know how to phrase it, but I don't want to give away so much that it feels like people are in my world, but enough for people to understand and to kind of, if they can resonate or if they can know that things will be okay, then that's what I want to do. And one of the things that helped me a lot by the time that I met G was seeing people like, I suppose, me now, that could sit in front of a camera and talk about making difficult decisions. People that were coming on 30 or being over 30 that chose not to be in relationships, that chose to go back to therapy, that chose to do the hard work so that ultimately they'd end up in a happy life. And one of the things that stood out for me before me and my ex broke up was that I was continuing a cycle that both our mums had made, or the conversations we'd had. I was carrying on that cycle that was an unhealthy one, and I thought that love was suffering, because we grew up seeing relationships that we look up to. My mum and dad have been married now for 30 years, and they have an amazing relationship. They are the best of friends, but that doesn't mean that everything's been perfect. And obviously when you grow up around people you're constantly watching, since I've been to therapy, a lot of what I've had to deal with is realising the fact that some of the people I did look up to growing up aren't the people that I thought they were, and the fact that we'll never even be able to have that conversation, because where I am now in life, they maybe have not had the opportunity to reflect. They maybe don't have the capacity to reflect. They don't have the capacity, or they haven't had the opportunity to go and look at who they are as a person, do some healing and bring that into the new relationship. So I've just had to accept that it is what it is. And the difference in my relationship is the fact that actually when things pop up, this is the first time where I can say I've always been someone that's very self-aware. I've always tried to be a good person, tried to do work on myself, and obviously being in therapy has given me a lot more tools to be able to do that and figure it out. But it's draining. It is sometimes really sad. Sometimes it's a lot trying to juggle everything. And I used to think that getting into a relationship, you had to get into one being healed as a person. But actually, I did a lot of work before I met G. I knew specifically what I was looking for, down to the point where my brother was saying I was looking for a unicorn and unicorns don't exist. And yet here I have somehow manifested this man that has brought me so much happiness, is making me see the world in a different way. But that ultimately is also bringing up challenges where I'm realising that I've still got a lot of healing to do, because there's maybe parts of my trauma that I hadn't faced as much as I thought I had. And a conversation I had with my brother, so there was a point when I started dating again where I just wasn't sure if what I was looking for existed. Like I said, Mlenga was talking about me looking for a unicorn, and I'm really lucky in the sense that I've always had great sounding boards, whether it's my friends, whether it's my brother, people I can honestly talk to and be completely open with, that understand life, I suppose, in a way that maybe sometimes the parents and the aunties and uncles don't completely understand. But yeah, getting into a relationship with someone whilst you're healing and being triggered by stuff. Like I said the other day, it was a positive conversation about, okay, could we be doing more for each other, more for ourselves? What else could we be doing? How we plan our future? All positive things. And yet it made me realise that I was coming from a place of insecurity for some of the things that I am looking for. Not that that's not okay, because at the end of the day, I am who I am. But I had to then leave it for a little bit and come back to the conversation with G in terms of saying, okay, well, this is basically what happened the other night, and this is how it made me feel, and this is what it made me think about. And ultimately, yes, I think it's very clear that I need to go back to therapy for some of these things. But what is that going to look like in terms of our relationship? Because I spent so much time being told that I was over the top and sometimes a bit needy and whatever else. But one of the first things G said to me was, well, no, you're not over the top, and you're never needy. Like, most people that will say that are people that just can't give you what you're looking for. Like, everyone has needs that need to be met and they're wanting to be met. And I think I'm really lucky to be in a position with someone that sees life differently and makes me feel okay for some of the things that, I suppose, for some of the damage, because we all have damage, we all have trauma, and yeah, I feel like being with him has made it very clear that I'm still navigating through a lot of that, and just how important it was for me to do that previous work before I got with him. Because before I got with my ex, I had been with someone that cheated on me in the worst way possible. So Dad was ill, Dad had cancer, we thought Dad was dying, Dad was. And it was just a really difficult time. I had the business, I was freelancing, I was at uni full time, and I was also working part time to support myself. I lived on my own. And obviously then imagining that your dad's going to die, imagining that you're going to not have him walk you down the aisle, just all these little things that you take for granted suddenly became very aware, and it's still something that affects me to this day. Like, Dad's way better, but when my brother and his fiancée were having Eliza, my niece, that triggered a whole load of new things. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is, to get into the last relationship, I came in with some trauma that I also didn't realise I was carrying. And it's only now that I look back, and a lot of it does make sense, because ultimately you've seen, or some of you might have seen, like the blog posts I used to put up, the things that I used to talk about, and I was with someone that loved me very much, but we weren't always the healthiest people. We didn't always communicate in the best way. I even wrote a blog once saying that I knew that if we broke up, I knew exactly why we'd break up, and that communication would be part of that. And lo and behold, that was it. So obviously I had done some healing going into that, but I had to do a lot of work again to not treat him as someone that was going to cheat on me, because that's what I'd been through before. Sometimes it made me accept things that I shouldn't have accepted. Sometimes it gave me a safe space to be able to deal with some things. But being in this relationship now is teaching me and has taught me that healing is still going on, and that healing comes in different types. Because like I've said, I've talked about being in a relationship and healing. I've talked about dealing with Dad potentially dying and having to come to terms with that. As a person in business, I talk a lot on here and on social media about mental health and the things that shape me as a person and what I'm working towards. And my struggle at the moment is life admin. I've had to let someone go in the team. I am trying to sell more. I'm trying to build a life that I'm going to be happy and comfortable with, because as we talk about settling down, what's that going to look like? I'm self-employed. I need to put things in place. So there are a lot of things in life that I think happen that could easily make it overwhelming. But what is making that easier is being with the right person. And for me, the right person, I feel like I'm going to cry. For me, being with the right person looks like someone that consistently shows up. Whether it's in, like I'm sat looking at a cup of tea that I just finished. The cups of teas that are made, food that's cooked for me, because I now don't cook 99% of the time, but I need to eat, and I eat healthy foods. Whether it's someone that just hears me and listens to me and makes me feel seen. I think there's a lot of healing that I didn't appreciate I was doing previously in older relationships, and things that I'm accepting about myself and appreciating about myself now that I wouldn't have done in the past. And I think, what am I trying to say in this podcast? I'm trying to say that it's okay to not be a put together person. It's okay to carry that damage, because it doesn't go overnight. It might never go. You have to find a way to be okay with who you are as a person. You have to find a way to be okay with your life. And that can only happen if you treasure yourself as a person, you respect yourself as a person, love yourself as a person, and do that well enough to then allow people in your life that do those things. And yeah, I suppose a conversation that was triggering for me has just made me realise that things are still difficult, and you can't expect to get into a relationship and be fully healed. And even when you think that you are healed, things will pop up here and there. But you need to be in the right frame of mind. You need to be with the right person so that you can just keep moving forward. You can keep doing things as a person. You can have your own life. You can still have your own dreams. And I think we're so used to being online and social media and seeing just people look like they've got it all figured out. Like I was saying earlier on, so Sunday I was working because I knew that Monday I was spending time with my mum. We were off for a little bit of pamper time. Worked a bit Monday night. Yesterday was Valentine's Day. When this comes out, it'll be Thursday. So between Valentine's Day and the podcast coming out, I've had to sort my nails because we're going away. I need to do my hair, but we're off out this evening. I've got client work to do. I need to do sales. There are loads of things I need to do that I know, and I practice a lot in how is my body feeling at this moment, what is going on. And there are things I've been putting in place since January that are allowing me to feel a bit more relaxed and allowing me to sleep better. But there are still a lot of things, clearly, that I think our bodies tell us so much more than we realise. And when we listen to our bodies and we listen to how things are making us feel and take a step back and a few minutes to just breathe and try to work out where some of those feelings are coming from, it's very clear that our bodies are way more in tune than sometimes our brains are. And like taking the time to think about it rather than just constantly trying to achieve something and hit the next goal, that's okay. And I think that's something that I'm really hard on myself, and I want to remind people that you can't have it all figured out, and you can't have it all figured out all the time, and it's okay to change your mind as a person. It's okay to change what your wants and needs are. But yeah, healing whilst in a relationship is very interesting at the moment because, yeah, it's triggering. But life. Anyway, so I didn't start and do the middle as I normally do with a podcast, because I just thought I'd see what this was going to be like. But I would still like to do the how am I doing part. And I suppose this is it. How am I doing? Mentally, I am okay. Like, I'm managing life so much better when things arise. I'm just doing it and managing it, which is great. But it doesn't mean that life isn't affecting me. It doesn't mean that I'm still not feeling anxious. It doesn't mean that things don't worry me. It doesn't mean that I don't feel insecure. Like, all these things are happening. But yeah, I'm just a bit more secure in myself and I suppose what I need to do, which is great. And win of the week. Do you know what? My win of the week is just how well I'm managing life at the moment, because all of a sudden this week I'm going away, and as long as I do the work I need to do today and tomorrow, I have had quite a relaxed week because I did a lot of work last week to get myself ahead. And I'm kind of re-looking at my life in the business in terms of like, what do I want this to look like going forward? I want to achieve things. I want to be financially free, but what am I going to have to sacrifice, and what's that going to look like? What do I want my life to look like in the future, but what do I want it to look like now? Because I might not get a future. We might not get that. So yeah, I think the win of the week is just I'm having a chilled week and a week where I can reflect and just sit and think about what's going on, and I'm not being too hard on myself. So that's exciting. But yeah, I hope this resonates with some people, and I hope even if you're not in a position where even if you're in a healthy relationship or you are okay mentally, I think reflection is good. It's good to have people around you that make you reflect on life, that you can reflect with. And I hope it does help someone just think, do you know what, I am okay and I'm going to be fine, because we are. So yeah, I will see you guys next week, and thank you as always for commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing. As always, like, it means so much more than you ever think, because like I said at the beginning of when I started doing this is a passion project, and I have not missed 1 week in over 6 months except over Christmas because I wanted to take that time off. So I really appreciate, even if it's just one person that watches and shares, but yeah, it all makes a massive, massive difference, and it's a nice bit of space that I have every week where I can just sit and chill and think and reflect and have a chat. So yeah, I appreciate you and thank you so much, and see you next week.